I should not have opened his fitness app. I only wanted to set up a walking tracker for myself. I tapped something by mistake, and the screen showed his location history. At first, I did not think much of it. But then I noticed something strange. Every Tuesday and Friday night, around 9 p.m., there was a repeated visit to a small Pilates studio. It was on the other side of the city, too far for a casual workout, and too consistent to be random. He always told me he was working late on those nights. Meetings, reports, traffic. I believed him. I had no reason not to. I zoomed in. The pattern was clear. He stayed there for nearly 2 hours each time. There were no other fitness logs, no recorded exercises, just silence and time gaps. That night, I could not sleep. I lay next to him, staring at the ceiling, my mind full of quiet questions. My heart felt tight, like it knew something my head refused to accept. The next morning, I dropped the kids at school early. I drove straight to the studio. I told myself I was wrong, that I needed to see it once and let it go. The building was small, clean, modern. The glass door was locked, but a woman came to open it when she saw me peering in. She welcomed me inside and handed me a brochure. I asked about class times and instructors. Then I asked her name. "Emma," she said with a friendly smile. The name was familiar. I had seen it once, a year ago, in a message Michael said was a wrong number. I remembered it because it had a red heart next to it. My legs felt weak. I smiled, said thank you, and left before my voice could betray me. Back in the car, I sat still for 10 minutes. Everything was suddenly too clear. It was not work. It was never about work. He had found someone new again, and this time he was smarter. No texts, no emails, just quiet hours hidden in a building I never thought to question. I did not cry, not yet. Instead, I drove home, picked up my laptop, and opened our shared calendar. I highlighted every Tuesday and Friday over the past 3 months. I wrote one word on each. Lied. By evening, I still said nothing. He came home, kissed my cheek, and asked about dinner. He talked about deadlines and how tired he was. I listened. I nodded. I waited. That night, while he slept, I went to the guest room. I sat there in the dark, thinking. 2 years ago, I forgave him for cheating. It was hard. I gave him a second chance because I wanted to believe people could change. We went to therapy. He promised. I promised. We tried. Or at least, I did. Before we continue, I would love to know, where are you listening from? Which city, which country? Share it in the comments. And if you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to hear more every week. The first time, it was someone from his office. Casual flirting that became too serious. He cried when I found out, said it meant nothing, that it was a mistake. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. I remembered how I used to watch him sleep, hoping he would wake up different, hoping he would become the man I thought I married. Now I was sitting in the same pain again, but colder this time. He did not cry this time. He did not even try to hide it well. In the morning, I left the house before anyone woke up. I drove to my sister's apartment and asked if I could stay for a few days. She looked at me, then nodded and moved aside. I said I did not want to talk. She said I did not have to. Her place was small, full of noisy kids and old blankets, but I felt safer there than I had in my own home. Michael texted that afternoon. He asked if I was okay, said he missed me, said the kids were asking questions. I read the messages but did not reply. That evening, my sister made tea and placed a cup in front of me without speaking. I stared at the steam rising. My hands were still. My body was tired, but my heart was strangely quiet. I had reached a place beyond sadness. It was a kind of stillness, a knowing, a truth I did not want but could no longer deny. He would never stop, no matter how much I forgave him, no matter how hard I tried to fix it. He did not want to be better. He just wanted to be forgiven. I stayed for 2 more nights. On the 3rd morning, I drove back to the house. I needed more clothes, and I missed the kids. Michael opened the door. His eyes looked tired. His voice was calm. He did not say sorry. He said we needed to talk, that he was confused, that he did not mean for things to get complicated. I told him I only came for clothes. I did not want a conversation. The kids ran to me. They hugged me like I had been gone for years. I smiled and held them, hiding the sadness in my chest. He watched from the hallway. I could feel his regret, but it came too late. Upstairs, I packed slowly, not because I wanted to stay, but because I did not want to leave the children again so quickly. On my way out, I stopped in the living room. He was sitting there holding his phone. I asked him if he loved her. He did not answer. That was enough. As I walked to the door, he stood up. He reached for my hand. I pulled it away. I loved you, I said. I worked for us, but I will not fight alone anymore. Outside, the sky was full of soft clouds. The air was heavy but calm. My sister's car was waiting, engine running. I got in without looking back. If you are still listening, thank you. And if you have ever trusted someone who broke you again, please remember you are not alone. That evening, I went for a walk around my sister's neighborhood. It was quiet and unfamiliar. The houses were close together, most with toys scattered on porches and laundry hung over fences. I walked slowly, not to reach anywhere, but to let my thoughts find their own place. I kept thinking about the silence in our bedroom that past week. How I used to listen to his breathing beside me and wonder if he ever truly felt sorry. Not just for cheating, but for ruining something we had built from nothing. Regret, I had learned, was easy. Change was not. I remembered the first time we met. It was a small party, a cold winter night. He had offered me his jacket, made me laugh with a joke about burnt soup. I used to love those little things. Now I could not remember the last time he made me laugh. My sister had noticed the change in me long before I admitted it. She once asked, "Are you happy or are you surviving?" I told her I was doing both, but now I knew the truth. I had only been surviving. The next morning, I woke up early and made breakfast for her children. They smiled and chatted, unaware of the storm inside me. Their innocence felt like a quiet gift, something I had forgotten in the middle of all my pain. For a few moments, I let myself enjoy their joy. Later that day, I sat with my sister on the back steps, watching the light move across the garden. She gently asked me what I planned to do. I told her I did not know. That part of me still wanted to believe he could change, that another part knew he never would. She did not push. She simply said, "You do not have to decide everything today." That helped more than I expected. By the end of the week, I visited a lawyer. It was not a decision I had planned. I walked past the building, paused, and turned back. I told myself it was just a conversation, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. The lawyer was kind and clear. She listened, took notes, and explained things without pressure. I left with a folder in my hand and a strange calm in my chest. It was the first time in months I felt like I had some control. That night, I sat alone in my sister's guest room and looked out the window. I thought about all the years I spent giving, bending, hoping. I had loved him so much, I forgot how to love myself. But now, I was learning, and maybe, just maybe, I would be okay. I returned to the house only because the children needed clothes for school. I parked outside and sat in the car for a few minutes, steadying myself. I did not want to see him, but I had to act like a parent, not someone broken. The front door opened before I knocked. He must have seen me through the window. He stood there, silent, waiting. I said nothing and walked past him. The kids were upstairs. I called to them softly, and they ran down with wide smiles and open arms. I held them close and tried not to let them feel how much I was shaking inside. Their love made it harder, not easier. After they ran off to play, I went to their room and started folding clothes into a bag. I avoided looking around too much. Every object reminded me of what I had tried to build. Every little shoe, every crayon drawing reminded me who I was doing this for. He stayed by the doorway. I felt his presence, but he did not speak. I could feel him watching me, maybe wondering what to say, maybe regretting what he had done. But I had no interest in hearing his version of guilt. As I zipped the bag shut, he finally spoke. He asked if I was still angry. I told him anger had passed. I was now in a place where even sadness had no space. I was simply done. He followed me as I walked to the door, his voice low and slow. He said he missed the children. I told him he would see them, but not through me. He would need to earn that right now. Back at my sister's, I unpacked quietly. She asked how it went, and I shook my head. No words came. She placed a glass of water in front of me and sat beside me. We both knew some pain needed silence, not answers. That evening, I looked through job boards online. My hands felt rusty typing a resume, but I pushed through. I hadn't worked in years. Still, something inside me whispered that it was time to rebuild on my own terms. 2 weeks later, I was offered a part-time job at a small bookstore. The pay was low, but I accepted it immediately. I wanted something of my own, a reason to wake up that was not tied to someone else's needs. The bookstore was quiet and smelled of old paper and warm coffee. I liked the soft hum of people browsing, the questions about books, the rhythm of shelving stories. No one knew me there. I was not someone's wife. I was just me. On weekends, the kids stayed with me. We cooked together, watched silly shows, and sometimes slept all 3 in one bed. They never asked why we left. Maybe they sensed it. Maybe they knew more than I thought. At night, after they slept, I wrote. Not long stories, just thoughts. Small pieces of memory. I was not trying to forget him. I was learning how to live without waiting for him to be someone better. My sister told me I looked stronger. I didn't feel that way, but I noticed I had stopped checking my phone every hour. I had stopped hoping for an apology that meant something. That felt like progress. Then one afternoon, Michael showed up at the bookstore. He stood near the counter, not saying anything. I walked over slowly, my heart beating faster than I wanted it to. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten. He said he was going to therapy, that he wanted to be a better father, that he now understood I would never be his again. It was the first time his words did not feel like a trap. I thanked him and asked him to leave. He did, quietly, respectfully. I watched him walk away and felt no pull to follow. The part of me that once needed him was now quiet. As weeks passed, I started seeing myself differently, not as a woman who had been betrayed, but as a woman who had survived, who had made choices, who had said no, even when it was hard. The bookstore owner offered me more hours. I accepted. It made the bills easier, but more than that, it gave me a routine, a rhythm, a reason to dress up, to leave the house with purpose. The kids noticed too. They started drawing pictures of our new life. One showed our small apartment with a garden of smiling flowers. Another showed me standing behind the bookstore counter, surrounded by happy books. One night my daughter whispered, "You look happy, Mommy." I kissed her forehead and held her close. I wasn't sure if I was happy yet, but I was no longer sad every day. That was something. On the last day of school, both children came home with small certificates. We had ice cream to celebrate. I took a picture of them laughing and hung it by the front door. It became my favorite part of the house. Later that summer, I received an invitation to a local writing workshop. Someone at the bookstore had recommended me. At first, I was unsure. Then I remembered how much I had loved writing before everything fell apart. I went. I sat in the back. I listened to other women tell their stories of loss, of love, of beginning again. I realized then that I was not broken. I was rebuilding. That night, I began writing my own story, not just for myself, but for anyone who had once believed love could fix what only truth and effort could heal. If you have ever loved someone who broke your heart more than once, know this: you were not foolish. You were brave. And walking away does not mean you gave up. It means you chose to live. Thank you for listening to this story. Please subscribe for more real, emotional stories to help you learn English and understand life, one voice at a time. The writing workshop became something more than I expected. It was not only a space to share stories, but a space where I started to believe mine mattered. Each week, I read a little more. At first, my voice was quiet, but soon, I began to speak without shaking. There were women in the room who had faced worse. Some had lost partners to illness, others to violence. But no one compared pain. We listened, nodded, and offered space. It felt like healing. One day, I brought a story that was clearly mine, though I wrote it in third person. A woman who gave too much, waited too long, and then walked away. When I finished reading, the room was silent. Then came soft claps. Not loud, but kind. A woman beside me reached for my hand. She said, "You wrote my story too." In that moment, I felt seen. Not as someone broken, but someone brave enough to tell the truth. At home, the kids were growing fast. My son started reading chapter books. My daughter learned how to ride a bike without training wheels. I was there for every moment, every small win, every tear wiped quickly. I still had difficult days. Grief doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter. There were nights I missed the idea of being held, even if the person who once held me had caused so much pain. But I no longer missed him. Michael tried to stay present as a father. He picked them up on weekends, sometimes cooked dinner. I never kept them from him, but I never let him near my peace again. There was a time he asked if we could go to therapy again. I said I was already in therapy. Mine. And I was not interested in repairing what he had repeatedly broken. Instead of fighting, he accepted it. Maybe he finally understood. Or maybe he just gave up. Either way, I was free. By the end of that year, my writing was published on a local blog. It was a short piece about learning to rebuild life after betrayal. Simple, honest, and real. The response surprised me. People commented. Some shared it. One woman wrote, "Thank you. I thought I was the only one." Those words stayed with me, because I once thought the same. The bookstore held a small reading night that winter. I was invited to read. I stood at the front of a familiar room and read a new piece. My children sat in the front row, smiling. That night, we walked home under soft snow. My daughter said I looked like a real author. I laughed and squeezed her hand. For the first time in years, I felt whole. We decorated the apartment with paper stars and warm lights. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And there was laughter. laughter I had not heard in a long time. One morning, I woke early and stood by the window with my coffee. The city was still asleep. I thought about the woman I used to be. Quiet, careful, always hoping love would be enough. I knew now that love was not enough when it was not returned with honesty. That trust, once broken again and again, could not be rebuilt by promises, only by actions. And sometimes, not even that was enough. At the workshop, a woman asked me what gave me the courage to leave. I told her it was not courage. It was survival. It was waking up one day and realizing I could not teach my children to love themselves if I stayed where I was not loved. There were days I still felt uncertain. Bills were hard. Work was tiring. Being alone came with its own challenges. But there was peace, and I no longer walked on emotional eggshells. Michael eventually stopped messaging. He became a presence in their lives, not in mine. We shared school calendars and medical records, not memories, and that was okay. I started saving money, slowly, enough for a small trip with the kids. We went to a nearby coastal town in spring. We walked by the water, ate simple food, and laughed over silly souvenirs. One night on that trip, the kids fell asleep early. I sat by the hotel balcony and listened to the sea. I realized I had not thought of him for an entire day. That felt like a small kind of victory. Healing doesn't arrive with loud announcements. It comes in quiet mornings when you make tea and do not cry. In evenings when you look around your home and feel safe, even if it's small. I still wore the ring for months after leaving. Not on my finger, but in a drawer. One day, without any special reason, I opened the drawer and dropped it into a box of old batteries and pens. That felt right. The next time someone asked if I was married, I said, "Not anymore," without shame, and I smiled after saying it, because I had finally learned that losing someone who lied to you again and again is not your loss. It is your beginning. Thank you for walking through this story with me. If you are healing from something similar, please remember, you are not alone. Subscribe for more real stories that help you grow in language and in life. We are learning together,